All right. I've never thought about how to start this. Should we say hi?
Yeah. Okay, wait.
Okay.
Yeah, we can just say, like, you want to say, like, oh, yeah, we can. I didn't have to roll.
Hi, I'm Kenneth.
And I'm Maya. Welcome to Journey to the Double Doc. We're incoming MD PhD students at Penn and Harvard MIT, and we wanted to create this channel to chronicle our training paths.
We hope to share things that we learned along the way that we wish we had known, as well just as to be a general resource for those interested and passionate about science and medicine. So feel free to contact us at our Twitter handles or our email. We would love to hear what you want us to talk about, and so welcome to our channel and hope you will join us on our journey. I was like,
And I was like, oh my god, like, why are you talking about this? Is like your first impression.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. It's been a while, but as we have been getting adjusted into our first year at our med schools, it's been a heck of a time, but also it's a good time for us to take a break and take a breather and like kind of update everyone on what we've been up to this summer and how transitioning into the fall has been for each of us.
So for me, I basically finished my summer rotation right at the at the beginning of August. And then that same day I got white coated and I started my first week of med school classes. And then I just finished my first week of like basic science med school classes. So things have been actually really fun. I was a little bit worried about Zoom med school, as I think I've mentioned to everyone in the last few videos, but I think because the HST program I'm in is pretty small, that helps a lot in getting to know my classmates. And then also a lot of us are MD PhD. Actually, I think over half of my HST class. So we've known each other from this last month of class. So I've actually been really enjoying it. And I guess it helps that we're starting with like coding and statistics, which is a lot more comfortable than probably me deep diving into biochem from day one.
Very similar to Maya. Also, it's been important for me since I moved to Philly. I'm currently living with like 3 other MD PhD first year, so it's been really nice to get to know them, as well as some other MD PhDs from like having interacted, whether that be on the interview trail or meeting them in the smaller MD PhD group me. And as we've done like our orientation week virtually this past week, we've got introduced to our small learning teams, which are like 6 to 8 people that we're going to be together with for 16 or 18 months, I can't remember exactly, through the pre-clinical curriculum. So meeting those people and like kind of slowly sampling, for lack of a better term, the med school class so far in a responsible, socially distant way has been really good. Like meeting them virtually has been different than like meeting people like in person. And so I am looking forward to hopefully one day meeting more of these classmates in person, but for the time being, really just, I think all of us are really trying to make the most of the situation here in Philly to be able to like use parks and have socially distanced hangouts and whatnot. So it's been good socially. I haven't entered classes or done any rotations yet. So tomorrow on Monday, it won't be Monday. It won't be tomorrow by the time you watch this, but tomorrow Monday is our first day of classes. Those are all virtual lectures though. So it's gonna be like a nice, easy transition, I feel like. But waking up earlier and earlier for orientation and for classes, it's definitely gonna be a struggle personally for me. So that's something that I'm not looking forward to as much.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, so like, what does your average day look like now that you're transitioning into basic science classes?
Yeah, so the average day for us, let me say the average week. It's an easier unit. So the average week there will be around 2 to 3 hours sessions in person on campus. So that it will be dedicated time for small group learning. So with the learning team that I mentioned previously, we'll be like going over material, talking about what we call in our doctrine course, like basically like thinking about a physician's role in society, a physician's role to her or himself, physician's role to their patient, as well as just like working through case studies or clinical presentations, clinical cases, excuse me. And most of the lectures are online and virtually delivered. So what the average week is I would say average week, probably 20 to 30 hours of commitment on the average week. And that varies day by day. So like, for example, on top of my head, I know tomorrow's schedule, it's like you can start. So let me rephrase, 20, 30 hours. Okay. So what they do is they give you a schedule where they have put in virtual lecture times as if a real lecture was happening to help you to give you a suggestion of how to stay on track. So for example, tomorrow there's lectures slated from 8 to 1:30, like back to back. So you can choose to watch them at those times if you wish, or you can choose to, probably what I'll end up doing is watch them later, but like also at a higher speed as well, other than one speed. As for the in-person activities, so that comes with some logistics. They don't want every single student entering the building at the same time. So at Penn, they have one building and like one section, one set of floors of the building that's dedicated to undergraduate medical education. So that's called JMEC. It stands for Jordan Medical Education Center or something like that. But basically, like there are specific instructions on how students are supposed to enter JMEC for these small groups sessions. So they've basically sectioned off time. So like some groups will be arriving at 8 o'clock. Some will be arriving at 8:15, 8:30, 8:45 in advance for their small group at 9 a.m. So just staggering them in that way. They recently, in the past week, gave a choice to students to elect to go completely virtual, meaning, so currently the only in-person component is those small groups in JMEC. So if you choose, you can elect to basically Zoom into the small group virtually instead of having to arrive in person for those activities. I know at least of one MD-PhD student who has chosen to do this option. They're gonna live at home and save some rent. They're trying to sublease out the property that they had signed a lease for in Philly. But so it's a really flexible situation. They do not anticipate this being the case in second semester. I don't know if you, how Harvard has decided to think about the second semester, if they've said anything about that at all.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, first of all, your schedule. It seems like it's a good mix of like lecture and small group and stuff. And I'm glad that you still have the option to do that in person because I feel like, as you said, like if a lot of people had moved and you didn't even have that at all, like that's really disappointing. For us, they keep on saying they're definitely gonna bring us back. I always like don't want to say definitely because I'm afraid I'm gonna jinx it. But it does seem like they're getting the infrastructure in place for like frequent testing and things like that. But I'm not actually sure like how it will look in the long term. I do know that for HST, like our director was telling us that like in June we're gonna go on like a little retreat together to like the mountains, and we're gonna have ice cream socials. And like in our Slack, we were all like, "Is that actually gonna happen?" Like we hope, but we'll see. But that'd be really awesome. So I'm trying to think about the future and get excited about that. Although, as I said, Zoom has been surprisingly good.
And sorry, June retreat or what month?
I think it's in June, and
So
that's
like
for HST.
2021.
Yeah, for
Oh
20.
man, you guys are like preparing for like a long time from now.
Yeah, I think one of the like not scariest but kind of weirdest things is I guess two weird things. They went through our HST schedule and like the different times we would leave and stuff. So it was like the 4-year plan, except like at year 2 they're like, and this is when people will go for like a year or 2 years or like 4 years and just do their thing and then they'll come back, which is always weird. And then also we had to write a letter to ourselves that we are sending to HMS and they'll hold on to us and give it to us at graduation. But they had to sign the letters like to doctor our name, which is really weird to write that. I felt really, I don't know, I just felt weird writing it, but I still did it because they told us to. But yeah.
Really cute. Like I think, yeah, 8 years, 7 years that you later when you look on it, I think you'll get a good kick out of it. That's actually a really cool idea. Yeah.
Maybe you should do that for yourself, even
Maybe
if
I will. Maybe I will. Yeah. Oh man, that's kind of scary to think about. That's kind of. I want to write down like what my interests in the moment are because I know that will change. I know for a fact it's going to change, and at least I want to like look back and like, wow, look how dedicated or quasi dedicated I was to this like idea of this plan I had. But yeah. Yeah. So before orientation week, we also had our virtual retreat here at Penn. So that was a lot of fun. So our retreats are mostly student and faculty presentations. And this year they were able to put together a really robust alumni piano programming because of probably the COVID situation. So besides the standard faculty talks and student talks, what was of note of me was like they offered an alumni and industry panel, which I ended up ending to attend, and it was actually really interesting to hear an industry and the perspective of MD PhDs in industry now. And it's just, I can't tell if it's because I've only ever heard the academic side. So everything they said was like refreshing or like, not refreshing, but like different and novel to hear. And that's why I thought the panel was so good. The moderator was also very good. Okay, I don't know why that's so irrelevant. So really enjoyed the retreat in that way. Kind of like was reminded of how big the program was, even though like we've been isolated like to like the 4 MVPs in this house and like the one that's like lives like 5 minutes away kind of thing. But yeah, it's just like reminding ourselves like we're part of a much bigger program. Like there are people to like talk to and like who are there to like help us out. Yeah, which was a good reminder during this time.
You also said that like you guys are gonna get big sips, or you got big sips, right? Like you.
Yeah, so we got big sibs if you wanted to like to have one. I signed up for one and she's really great. But like there isn't really much form of structure to it here at Penn. It's kind of like more of like what you make out of it. I think that for me personally, like I think it's for me easy to be overwhelmed by the number of possible like mentors or advisors that you could have between the med school, the MD future program, the PhD program. So like there's naturally like a lot of people. So it's nice to have people in at different stages, like near peer or like more senior, etc. But also it's about me like curating like what I want out of each relationship, like being more purposeful with like when I approach them or like why am I approaching them and making sure, at least for myself, that I have at least some explicit goals of like what I want out of it and make sure I'm at least striving towards that. And then everything else that comes along with it will just be like an added bonus. But I think that's like how I've been thinking about approaching like mentorship, especially in this time, because there are so many that people that are willing to put in the time. And so out of respect in part and just like in part to like stay sane, it's important for me myself to like be thinking about those kind of things.
Yeah. I like that you're taking a really deliberate approach to it. I feel like it's like an interesting shift from undergrad where I feel like you have to like seek out mentors a lot because there's just a lot of people. But in med school, I feel like it's such a different shift in ratio between like faculty and students. It's nice, but it's different, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I think like in HST I have an advisor, and then I have an MD PhD advisor, and like all these different people. And they also have this like mentorship, optional mentorship program where we can sign up or reach out to different mentors. But one thing I liked a lot is that each of the mentors talks about like their expectations and also the cadence, like whether they want to meet every few weeks or like once or twice a year. And I actually think I had never really thought about laying out expectations as much for mentorship because mainly my mentors have been my PIs. So it was cool to think about it that way. And that's something I also want to bring to like relationships where I'm a mentor and like figuring out ways to like check in with my mentees in a way that fits both of our schedules.
I really like the idea of like setting explicitly, at least initially on the onset, like how frequently should we be? Because that we can change later, but like setting it from the beginning, it's like actually a really good idea that I think I will want to use. Because there's actually like, so I was like talking to PIs over the summer, and there was a PI said I will reach back out to him once I'm done talking to all done talking to all the PIs. And I thought I was done, but then I found a couple more PIs. I was like, maybe I should reach out to them. And so it's like this meeting I've like still not scheduled with this person. And I'm like, ugh, I feel kind of bad because I did promise him, but I think he understands like this is the time that we're busy. But yeah, I guess one other thing that I want to ask you during this time is like, at least for me, entering the preclinical curriculum, like with all these mentions, and like with the student groups that people are like advertising to join stuff, like a new question in my mind, or like it's not a new question obviously, but it's like more in my mind these days is like clinical specialty. Like I wonder like how have you given any thought to that, or like how have you given any thought to it? And if so, how have you been giving it thought?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think I've mentioned it before, but like right now I'm really interested in like some combination of like pediatrics and like psychiatry and neurology. But I also like do want to get as much exposure as I can, especially because I don't really do that much clinical stuff before starting my PhD. So I've been signing up for like all the specialty talks just to like go and listen. Actually, I was gonna text you, Kenneth, but I forgot. I'm going to like an ophthalmology talk tomorrow on like ocular tumors, which is like I haven't like really done anything with like cancer or eyes, so it'll be interesting to see the intersection. And then I'm going to like a radiation oncology talk like the day after. I'm just gonna like, they have these like regular sessions for M1s. I'm just gonna go and like see if anything stands out to me, because I have to say like sometimes my interests, I discover them like so randomly, but then they're things I really like, so I just want to be like open to that. But it's kind of overwhelming. I sat down today and I made a list of all the clubs I could join, and there's a lot. So I just don't want to overwhelm myself. But it's like there's so many opportunities. I really want to get involved. So I'm just trying to find that balance. So I guess looking a little bit more forward, you're starting your second rotation, or not your second, you're starting your rotation in the second semester, right?
Yeah, so Penn does this model where you have during your first year, inclusive of the summer that precedes second year, like what I will call 1.5 rotations. Some programs will allow you to count it as 2 rotations. Some program like mine will count it as 1. Um, what you can do is the half rotation you have to do. It's something you can't do. Everyone does a half rotation during the second semester of their first year during the spring. And students use this time in a variety of ways. The commitment I've heard ranges from 5 hours a week to 20 hours a week, depending on who you are, what your goals are, what you and your PI have discussed. You want to come in the weekends? Exactly.
Yeah.
Some students use it to maybe familiarize themselves with a new technique, for example, while getting a sense of the lab. Like all of this is like in the context of getting a sense of the lab. For myself, the technique. Others like choose to write a literature review during this time of like a topic that might be pursuing further down the line. Or some people do some experimentation and maybe try to think if this project is right for me or not. So that's like the spring rotation. That one can be done with the same PI that you do then during your full rotation during the summer. So a lot of people will be doing like preliminary data / literature review in preparation for a bigger project during that summer. So it allows you to get some runway under you as you like try to get a project up off the ground. Or others figure out during that rotation that they don't like that lab for whatever reason and choose to pursue a new lab, or they want to try out 2 labs, so they do 2 different labs during this rotation time. Penn has been doing a good job of introducing me to faculty that I might not have otherwise seen. Like so at the retreat, they invite faculty that are looking for rotation students, and they do offer a good sampling of faculty to speak. On the graduate school sides, what Penn has done in the biomedical graduate sciences program, which is the umbrella term for all the biomedicine programs, is they have a spreadsheet where PIs that are interested in having students fill in their contact information, a brief description of their lab, and like if they're, and in what capacity are they looking for students? Like, is it a fall rotation, which aren't applicable to MD-PhD students, but are applicable to PhD students? Are they looking for a spring 2021 rotation, which would be applicable to us as MD-PhD students? In conjunction with that, faculty that filled out that spreadsheet have an opportunity to like give like a 5 to 10 minute pre-recorded session about like their lab and what they do. So it's a really good way for students to like go through labs. So which I think was really helpful for me, because there was a couple labs that I decided to give either another look because of it, or like I had not actually come across them the first time, because you only get so much information from me in the lab website and the publication. So it is the time to be like reaching out and like contacting people, and this makes it easier to see if like, oh, the more I've heard about this is actually something I'm more interested in, and like, oh, I've heard more of it, and actually it's actually not what I kind of thought was going on, and that's not something I'm interested in. So overall, I'm really excited about the prospects for this rotation. But yeah, oh, that's so windy.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I'm really glad that they do that kind of like meet and greet with the faculty, because I feel like that's a really nice way to kind of also get to know people's personalities and like figure out who you might actually click with, just like on the like human to human connection outside of the science.
I wonder how is it for you guys, because you guys have so many faculty. Like, so like, how is that process over there? Like, I feel like Penn already has a lot of faculty, don't get me wrong, but between Harvard and MIT and all the affiliate hospitals, like, you're getting like a lot of possibilities. And like, how has the program done anything to maybe advise you, to help you, or have they been like pointing you in certain strategies or ways to approach this?
Yeah. So I've been getting kind of mentorship on this, both from like the HST side of things and then the MD PhD side. Because even for HST, like everyone does a research thesis, so we're all kind of in the same boat, which is nice. So we've been doing these like Meet the Investigator series, which sound kind of similar to what you've been doing and all these journal clubs and stuff. But I think the biggest thing has just been also me just like identifying people and seeing like what MD PhD students have rotated with them or joined their lab. And that's been like a good way to kind of talk to people. But it's also interesting. I do feel like despite there being so many investigators, like there's definitely a few that get a lot of MD PhD students, and then like it gets more spread out. So like I know the person I rotated with used to be like the director of the MD PhD program, and he has like not like a ton of MD PhD students because the lab isn't like huge on purpose, but like definitely like enough that I can talk to, and there's like a really good support for an MD PhD student, and he is an MD PhD. So I think in that sense that's helpful too, to know what other people have done.
I want to approach students that rotated in the labs I'm interested in and both like have chosen and have not chosen that lab. What kind of questions have you been like asking students specifically?
Yeah, I think especially been really interested in the people who didn't end up joining the lab, and like usually people are pretty willing to talk about why they didn't join the lab, whether it was like a huge thing. I've definitely heard some like pretty extreme things of like, I'm definitely not going to join that lab, to something that's more like I just, liked a different lab more. But I think also just asking like what the expectations of the mentor tend to be, like how often you tend to meet, like the lab culture, like kind of all the stuff that honestly isn't maybe about the science, because I feel like with the science, like you hear from the PI, it's on the website, like you read the papers, whatever. But I really want to find a place that like feels like a home to me, and like that'll be different. But it'll be nice to hear like what other people think about that.
And when do you have to commit to your thesis lab? End of second year or slightly before that?
So we apply to graduate school. So I think this is one thing where we differ from Penn. We don't come in like affiliated with a particular graduate program. So we actually all have to apply in the middle of our second year. So
Okay.
by then, like, I don't think you technically have to commit, but like the idea is that like you have rotated people associated with the graduate program, so that it's not like you've only rotated with Harvard people and now you're applying to like an MIT program. But I think we officially commit by the end of M2, and there's time to do like up to 6 rotations if we make them short. Actually, I was talking to one of my mentors in my lab I rotated with, who I think was also in HST and definitely did the Harvard MIT MD PhD program. She told me she did like 5 rotations, so that made me feel good that like some people definitely do a lot.
Yeah. This kind of conversation really goes back to like the process of the interview trail and like getting a fit of a program. Because like prior to interviewing, like you only like are really basing it off of like the website, what you've like heard about the program. If you are somehow able to connect to someone that or went through the program or have been at the or is at the program, and like getting like a nebulous sense of like what the culture is and like how you fit there. And I feel like the same kind of questions are coming up for me as we are going into this search for a potential PhD home.
Yeah, exactly. It's like always the same idea of like, where's the best environment for you? And like, it's interesting. I saw a tweet that I think is really true, and it was saying about how like two people who were both like, equally as like interested in science or whatever, just had two totally different experiences in the same lab. And it really just comes down to personality too. And I think that's important as well. Like recognizing like, it's not like, I mean, there's definitely people who are just like bad mentors and they're mean to their students, but a lot of times it's like people are good mentors, but just maybe not to everyone. And you have to figure out like where you fit in with like who they mentor the best.
Yeah, definitely. Let's leave it there because you did end on a Twitter note, and which is a good time for us to again plug our Twitter handles where we do retweet and stuff that are, I think, of interest to this audience.